What does it take to create a truly unforgettable performance? For some actors, it's more than just learning lines and hitting their marks. It's a journey of total transformation, a descent into a character so deep that it requires them to physically and mentally reshape themselves. They are praised for their dedication, they win the awards, and their performances are etched into cinematic history. But what is the real cost of this devotion? Tonight, we explore the stories of actresses who pushed their bodies and minds to the absolute breaking point for the sake of their art. They endured starvation, grueling physical exhaustion, and deep psychological trauma, all for a single role. These are the 19 Hollywood actresses who sacrificed their health for cinematic immortality. Natalie Portman. For her role as the obsessed and fragile ballerina Nina Sayers in Black Swan, Natalie Portman delivered a performance that was both haunting and physically astonishing, earning her an Academy Award. But the beauty on screen was born from a year of grueling pain. Portman, who already had a slender frame, dropped an additional 20 pounds through a barely-there diet of carrots and almonds. More punishing was the physical regimen. She trained for up to 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, pushing her body to the limits of a professional ballerina. The sacrifice came at a severe cost. She dislocated a rib during a lift, sustained numerous other injuries, and admitted that there were nights she literally thought she was going to die. She described the process as a state of near-starvation, pushing her body into a zone of exhaustion and pain that blurred the line between her and the self-destructive character she was playing. Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway's portrayal of the doomed Fantine in Les Miserables is one of modern cinema's most heartbreaking performances. To accurately portray a woman dying of consumption and poverty, Hathaway embarked on a dangerous and rapid weight loss journey. She first lost 10 pounds before filming, and then, for the scenes depicting Fantine at her lowest, she lost an additional 15 pounds in just 2 weeks. She achieved this by eating nothing more than 2 thin squares of dried oatmeal paste a day. She described the experience as being in a state of deprivation, both physical and mental. The lack of nutrition left her so physically and emotionally depleted that she admitted it took her weeks to feel like herself again. She said the experience left her feeling detached from reality, a psychological sacrifice that gave her performance its raw, desperate power, but at a significant cost to her own well-being. Mila Kunis. Alongside Natalie Portman in Black Swan, Mila Kunis also subjected her body to an extreme transformation to play the role of the lithe ballerina, Lily. Like Portman, she underwent a grueling training schedule and a severely restrictive diet, ultimately dropping 20 pounds from her already petite frame, leaving her weighing just 95 pounds. She has been brutally honest about the devastating effect this had on her body. "I had no shape, no boobs, no ass," she recalled. "All you saw was bone." The process was so unhealthy that she said her body has never been the same since. When filming ended and she began eating normally again, the weight redistributed in different places. The physical sacrifice was immense, and she has stated unequivocally that she would never put her body through that kind of ordeal for a role again, highlighting the dangerous and often lasting physical consequences of such extreme transformations. Charlize Theron. To play serial killer Eileen Wuornos in Monster, Charlize Theron underwent one of the most famous transformations in film history, not by losing weight, but by gaining it. She stopped exercising and ate a diet of donuts and potato chips to pack on 30 pounds, but the physical sacrifice went beyond weight gain. To capture Wuornos' sun-damaged and weathered skin, she layered on prosthetic skin, and she wore prosthetic dentures that altered the way she spoke and held her mouth, all of which contributed to her unrecognizable appearance. While the transformation won her an Oscar, she has spoken about how unhealthy the process was, and how much harder it was to lose the weight as she got older compared to other roles. More than just the weight, inhabiting the psyche of a deeply traumatized and violent killer took a significant mental toll, a sacrifice of both physical and psychological health for one of cinema's most powerful performances. Rooney Mara. For her breakout role as the punk hacker Lisbeth Salander in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Rooney Mara's transformation was less about weight and more about a painful physical metamorphosis. To become the iconic character, she bleached her eyebrows, chopped her hair into a severe, jagged cut, and most notably, got multiple real piercings, including her eyebrow, nose, lip, and nipple. She did this to feel authentic in the role, to understand the character from the inside out. But the sacrifice was also psychological. To inhabit the mindset of the deeply antisocial and traumatized Salander, Mara isolated herself, adopting the character's withdrawn and aggressive demeanor both on and off screen. The role demanded a physical and emotional commitment that was all-consuming, a sacrifice of her own body and social comfort to fully embody one of modern literature's most complex heroines. Hilary Swank. To play boxer Maggie Fitzgerald in Clint Eastwood's $1 Million Baby, Hilary Swank completely remade her body, sacrificing her health and well-being for authenticity. She undertook a punishing training regimen, boxing for 2.5 hours and lifting weights for another 2 hours, 6 days a week, for 3 months straight. To build the necessary muscle mass, she had to consume a staggering 210 grams of protein each day, which required her to wake up in the middle of the night to drink protein shakes. The intense routine led to a dangerous staph infection from a blister on her foot. The infection was so severe it nearly reached her heart, and she had to be hospitalized for 3 weeks, keeping it a secret from the film's producers so she wouldn't lose the role. She literally risked her life for the part, a sacrifice that ultimately won her a second Academy Award. Renee Zellweger. For the iconic role of Bridget Jones, Renee Zellweger twice underwent a significant physical transformation by gaining approximately 30 pounds. To achieve this, she famously abandoned her exercise routine and embraced a 4,000-calorie-a-day diet, feasting on pizza, burgers, and protein shakes. While the results were celebrated on screen, the process took a serious toll on her health. She has spoken about the panic attacks she experienced from the rapid weight gain and the warnings from doctors about the potential long-term damage to her heart and metabolism from such dramatic yo-yo dieting. The cycle of gaining weight for the role and then rapidly losing it for other projects put her body under immense stress. It's a sacrifice she was praised for at the time, but it highlights the often unseen health risks actresses are encouraged to take for the sake of a comedic and beloved character. Demi Moore. For her role as Lieutenant Jordan O'Neill in the 1997 film G.I. Jane, Demi Moore undertook one of the most intense physical transformations of its time. To believably portray the first woman to undergo training in a special operations unit, she committed to a grueling, real-life military fitness regimen. Her workouts included intense weight training, running, and obstacle courses, often starting at 4 a.m. before a full day of filming. The most iconic part of her transformation was shaving her head on screen, a symbolic sacrifice of vanity. But the physical toll was immense, pushing her body to the brink of exhaustion day after day. The role redefined her as an action star, but at a significant physical cost, setting a new standard for the level of physical sacrifice actresses were willing to endure for a role. Lily James. To embody Pamela Anderson in the series Pam and Tommy, Lily James's sacrifice was a daily ordeal of physical transformation and mental discipline. For 4 months, her day began with a 3:30 a.m. workout, followed by a 4-hour session in the makeup chair to apply a prosthetic chest piece, fake tan, and meticulously recreated makeup. She wore a wig and prosthetic teeth to alter her smile, but the physical toll went beyond the chair. To maintain a specific physique for the role, Her diet was incredibly strict, and she has said she was a real hermit during filming, isolating herself to maintain the necessary focus and discipline. The constant physical manipulation and isolation took a mental toll, with James admitting she had moments where she thought, "I can't do this anymore." It was a sacrifice of her personal life and physical comfort for months on end. Emma Stone. For her Oscar-winning role as tennis legend Billie Jean King in Battle of the Sexes, Emma Stone embarked on a demanding journey to transform her slender frame into that of a professional athlete. She worked with a personal trainer for 3 months, undertaking a heavy weightlifting regimen that saw her deadlifting up to 180 pounds. The goal was to pack on 15 pounds of pure muscle. To fuel this, she had to drink multiple high-calorie protein shakes a day, in addition to her meals. While the physical training was intense, she also had to master the specific movements and playing style of one of the greatest tennis players in history. The sacrifice was one of total physical commitment, pushing her body into a new realm of strength and athletic prowess that required months of grueling, relentless work. Shelley Duvall. Perhaps the most harrowing story of psychological sacrifice belongs to Shelley Duvall for her role as Wendy Torrance in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. The legendary director was notoriously demanding, but his treatment of Duvall bordered on abusive. To get a genuinely terrified performance, Kubrick intentionally isolated her from the rest of the cast and crew, was openly aggressive towards her, and forced her to perform scenes over and over again. The famous baseball bat scene, for instance, was shot 127 times, a world record. The immense stress of the 13-month shoot caused her hair to fall out and left her physically and mentally ill for months afterward. She was not just acting terrified, she was genuinely being terrorized. It was a complete sacrifice of her mental health for one of cinema's most iconic horror performances. Jennifer Lawrence. For her role as the poverty-stricken Ree Dolly in Winter's Bone, Jennifer Lawrence had to embody a character hardened by a life of deprivation. To prepare, she learned to fight, chop wood, and even skin a real squirrel on camera, a sacrifice of her own comfort for the sake of brutal authenticity. But her transformation for the Hunger Games also took a toll. She underwent months of intense training in running, climbing, and archery to believably portray Katniss Everdeen. The most demanding sacrifice, however, may have been for the film Red Sparrow, where she played a Russian ballerina turned spy. The role required a restrictive diet and intense ballet training, a process she described as reaching a breaking point of hunger and exhaustion, proving that even for established stars, the physical sacrifice required for a role can be immense. Angelina Jolie. For her role as the real-life supermodel, Gia Karanji, in the HBO film Gia, Angelina Jolie went to a dark and dangerous place. The film chronicled Gia's tragic life, including her heroin addiction and death from AIDS. To capture the character's emotional turmoil and isolation, Jolie employed a method acting technique so intense that she completely cut herself off from her own life. She told her then-husband, Johnny Lee Miller, that she wouldn't be able to speak to him during filming. She has said that she remained in character as the troubled model for the entire shoot, embracing her pain and loneliness. The psychological sacrifice was so profound that she decided to quit acting for a time after the film wrapped, needing to step away from the industry to recover from the emotional toll of living inside such a tragic and self-destructive character. Janet Leigh. In Alfred Hitchcock's masterpiece Psycho, Janet Leigh's character is famously murdered in the shower in the first act. While her screen time was relatively short, the psychological sacrifice she made for that one iconic scene haunted her for the rest of her life. The filming of the shower scene took 7 days and over 70 camera setups. Though a body double was used for some shots, Leigh was there for most of it, enduring the cold water and the terror of the scene. She said that seeing the final cut with its terrifying editing and music was so traumatizing that she stopped taking showers altogether. For decades after making the film, she would only take baths, and if she stayed somewhere with only a shower, she would lock all the doors and windows and face the door. It was a lifelong phobia born from sacrificing her sense of security for one perfect, terrifying scene. Hilary Swank. Boys Don't Cry. Years before Million Dollar Baby, Hilary Swank made a different, profound sacrifice for her breakout, Oscar-winning role as Brandon Tina in Boys Don't Cry. To accurately portray the transgender man, she lived as a man for a full month before filming began. She cut her hair short, wrapped her chest, and lowered her voice, introducing herself to strangers as James. The goal was to understand the experience of passing as a different gender. This deep dive into method acting was a significant psychological sacrifice, forcing her to confront issues of identity and societal perception in a way that was deeply personal and transformative. The commitment to living the truth of her character, even for a short time, allowed her to deliver a performance of raw honesty and power, but it required a complete suspension of her own identity. Margot Robbie. To portray the controversial figure skater Tonya Harding in I, Tonya, Margot Robbie pushed her body to its absolute limit. Despite having no prior experience, she trained for 5 months, 4 days a week, to master the complex and physically demanding routines, including Harding's famous triple axel, though a double was used for some shots. The sacrifice came with significant injuries. During training, she suffered a herniated disc in her neck and had to undergo regular MRIs to monitor the damage. She spoke of the intense pain and the fear of sustaining a career-ending injury. It was a grueling and dangerous undertaking, a sacrifice of her physical safety to authentically capture the power and grit of one of sports' most infamous athletes, Daisy Ridley. As Rey in the Star Wars sequel trilogy, Daisy Ridley transformed from a relative unknown into an action hero. The physical sacrifice required was immense. For The Force Awakens, she trained for 3 months in weightlifting, climbing, and intense staff fighting choreography. The regimen became even more demanding for The Last Jedi, with her workouts becoming so intense they often left her exhausted. Beyond the general fitness, the wire work and stunt choreography were grueling and often dangerous. She had to learn complex fight sequences and perform them repeatedly, a physically taxing process that required the endurance of a professional athlete. Her transformation into a believable warrior was not movie magic. It was the result of years of sacrificed personal time and pushing her body through relentless, punishing work. Kate Winslet. For her role in The Reader, Kate Winslet had to inhabit the emotionally complex and dark world of a former Nazi concentration camp guard. The psychological weight of the character was immense, and she has said that it took her months to recover after filming Wrapped. She described the experience as leaving her feeling like she had escaped a car crash, unable to separate herself from the darkness of the role. She admitted that for a long time she couldn't stop thinking about the character and the historical atrocities her role represented. This wasn't a physical transformation, but a profound psychological sacrifice. She allowed the trauma of the character to seep into her own psyche, a process so taxing that it left her emotionally shattered and questioning her own method of acting. It was a sacrifice of her own mental peace for a role that would ultimately win her an Oscar. Conclusion: dedication, obsession, art, and self-destruction. The line between them can be terrifyingly thin. These actresses, and many others like them, offered up their own health as a sacrifice to their craft. They were rewarded with accolades and timeless performances, but the scars, both visible and invisible, often remain long after the cameras stop rolling. Their stories force us to consider the immense pressure put upon actors, especially women, to physically and emotionally contort themselves for our entertainment. It is a testament to their incredible commitment, but also a sobering reminder that behind the magic of cinema, there is often a very real and very human cost.